Hello, welcome to AI in Action. My name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband Jim, and we
Well,
are about to talk
technically,
about.
you're not here with your husband, Jim. I want to interrupt that.
I was actually just about to say,
Uh-huh.
technically, I'm not with my husband Jim. I'm actually in Houston, Texas, sitting in a hotel room, and Jim is back in Lano, sitting in his office. I'm doing a AI training for a school here in Houston tomorrow. With my daughter. Rachel is joining me for this training because Jim and I don't always do trainings together, unfortunately, especially when our students just came back to Llano ISD last week. One of us needs to be in the technology department just to play it safe in case something like stops working, like, oh, I don't know, the whole Wi Fi system at the junior high going down or something like that. So we
Yeah.
are
So
separated for this evening.
poor Rachel's getting drug around first with me, then with you. First.
Yes, Yes, we did a training last week. I ended up having to go one place, and so you could stay, and then you had to go the other place, so I could stay. And it's, you know
Yep.
what? It's a really good problem to have.
Yes, at least people want to hear us.
People want to hear us, and they're actually paying us just a little bit of money, so it's awesome. So, anyway, we are going to talk about several things this evening for our half hour that we have you guys. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is the hype. Well, you have mentioned the hype bubble and the hype bubble bursting, and we talked about this in past podcasts. You know, people shouting it from the rooftops. It's going to go away. It's all going to go away. So, talk about what is leading you to believe um, about the hype again. Why are we talking about the hype again?
Well, first, what happened last week? We didn't do our podcast. You didn't mention that.
Well, no, we didn't because I wasn't here. Why did we not do our podcast last week?
Well, part of it, remember that alternating thing where we're alternating back and forth and going to different places? And the teachers came back and the new teachers came back and you worked all weekend and I worked all weekend and it's been it's been a little crazy between the trips and this time of year is crazy. I mean, it's not normally this hectic for us in terms of, at our day job,
Mhm.
but it's been a little much lately. So
Well,
anyway,
I
so
will
we
be
did
back in
miss our
office
podcast.
on yes, we did. I will be back in office on Tuesday, and then we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we head to California on Saturday.
We
We're
do.
training a school in California on Monday of next week, a week from tomorrow. So I need to make sure I have my anti-anxiety meds ready to go before I get on that
Yeah.
airplane again.
You
So
know what? You did great
anyway,
last time. All right. Anyway, what I'm talking about here is the getting whiplash thing. I've mentioned it many times that we have a group that it's they're shouting from the rooftops about the wonders of AI and it's the greatest things ever. And then we've got a group that's saying the naysayers that are saying it's all a big bubble, it's going to crash, and everybody's looking for signs to reinforce what they say is true.
oh, absolutely. They're
so
looking
I'll
for validation. Everyone
right.
looks for validation.
So I'll let you read the headline.
1 trillion wipeout. The market
Yeah,
rout punishes mega cap tech.
yeah, that was a headline. I don't remember which where I read that. I usually put that in there, but I forgot to put that in there this time. But it was one of the financial magazines kind of thing. So anyway,
It was a
like I
market
said,
downturn. It was a
yes,
market downturn, and I mean, all these major technology companies, it was like $1 trillion value, um, market capitalization. It went down. I mean, the trading on Monday was crazy. And of course, one thing that I had to point out to you is that what did we do? Nvidia did a split. We bought some Nvidia stock because hey, it's going to be great, and it goes down every single time. If anyone wants stock advice from me, I advise highly against it. Or
Mhm.
better yet, let me tell you what to buy and then don't buy it and or short sell, because every
That's
time
not
I buy stock,
true.
it goes down every single time.
Not
Let's
every
talk
time.
about First Republic Bank. Let's talk about
Yeah,
that
that was a
one.
recent
I
thing.
mean, come on. And so I have this NVIDIA stock. I was so happy. I have some Apple stock. I'm so happy. And next thing I'm looking
Our
at my market
Microsoft
again.
stock's doing pretty well though, right? Our Intel
Yeah,
stock, now Intel's not doing very well either.
today, I know.
Intel went
But,
down
and of course,
26%.
we don't own a lot of shares. It's not like we can afford a lot of them. So
So
every dollar counts, you
you
know?
don't think us owning or not owning it's really going to affect their market cap at all?
No, we have absolutely no skin in that game when it comes to
Not a big enough
moving
skin
that
anyway.
market. Nope, not
So
moving that market.
the big movers and shakers in technology, Nvidia, Apple, Amazon, were hit the
They were hit
hardest.
hard.
Nvidia lost 300 billion in market cap. I think they ended up losing a half a billion in market cap total. And so the seven most valuable tech stocks lost 995 billion in market cap.
Just say that out
Impacts.
loud. 995 billion. Just thinking that number is not possible for me.
Well, it's almost the same as our what we spend on national defense every year. Anyway, so it also affected. They always say that when the United States markets, when they when they sneeze, the world catches a cold. So lots of things did fall. I see the whole thing. Of course, they had talk about AI bubble concerns. This analyst from Elliott Management was saying they're overinvested in AI and all that other stuff, and so I'm a little
Okay, so
skeptical.
NVIDIA did a 6-month delay on a chipset, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct.
And because of this 6-month delay, the market went crazy. That was part of it because they're having to push it out. They're having to push it out for 6 months.
Pretty much. I'm sorry if I
Yeah,
keep coughing. I'm trying not
that's
to, but
okay. Hey, the market sneezed and Jim caught a cold.
Jim has allergies, and every time it rains in Texas, I have problems with allergies for at least 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. So,
All right, well,
um,
I could do some
anyway,
talking. So let's put this in perspective,
let's do
okay?
that.
The same analysts that were singing the praises of all of these companies 3 months ago, and they were driving up the market cap on like Nvidia and all this stuff. They're the ones that are now saying, "We told you so, we told you so." It's gonna, the bubble is bursting and they've overinvested in AI and
Yes,
yada yada yada.
that's
So
correct.
what I want to know is who's making the money on short sales. It's like it's always about following the money.
Well, I think that's
So,
part of it. I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is it's about wanting to be the one that says that it gives you street cred. When you're the one that predicted the market move, there's always this guy that you'll see these headlines that says such and such predicted the last almost all of the last presidents for the last 3 or 5 presidents, and that almost is what the key phrase is. Well, you have the same thing with these stocks. Such and such predicted that AI was going to crash. Well, my dad used to tell me that if you predict something broad enough and long enough, eventually you're probably going to be right.
mhm.
So they just keep predicting and keep predicting. I talked to an analyst once who was covering biometrics when I was in the biometrics market, and he was talking about biometrics in general. I said, "Do you know anything about biometrics?" He goes, "No." He goes, "But I figure if I'm in it and I make predictions about it and I turn out to be right, then I'm a hero and everybody will think I'm great. And if I'm wrong, then everybody will forget me the next day that I ever predicted anything. So I don't have a downside to being the one that predicts where biometrics is going to go." You see the same thing with AI. I mean, there's all these people. Yeah, Nvidia went down half a trillion dollars in market cap. Do you really think that that really had any serious impact on their day-to-day operations, what they did? The only
I mean,
impact it would have is if they're
they
very poor
lost
at
like
planning,
$4. I mean, they lost like $6 per share,
and then it came back
and then
up.
they came back up to like $3 a share at a loss.
I know the
So,
headline
uh,
only starts in the morning. The headlines end when the crash happens. They rarely at the end of the day in bold print say, and it corrected itself afterward.
right, right. So
So,
I like one of the little things in this article. It says that Nvidia stock probably went down because the big money on Wall Street needed new yachts,
oh,
so
that they
they
didn't
cashed
say
out
that.
their
That was
massive
me.
returns. Oh,
That
that
was
was
me.
you?
That wasn't in the article.
Okay.
Sorry, that was me being sarcastic. But well, these big money folks that you don't think they do
They pull
profit
money
taking?
out.
You don't
They
think they
pull
do
money
profit
out.
taking? I
No,
mean,
absolutely.
Nvidia stock goes up or any of these others go up. Nvidia was up 262% from a year ago. You know,
Well, and
what
what
is that?
what
What are they
gets
all
me
saying
is
before they roll the dice? Come on, baby. Daddy needs a new car or whatever, and you
new
throw the
pair of
dice.
shoes. Mama needs a new
Mama
pair of
needs a new
shoes.
pair of shoes.
Um, I think the thing with me is that they don't even it's all automatic now. Like, whenever I do go to buy shares in something, I set, "Okay, I want to buy it at this price. It's only gonna be good for a day. I'm only gonna give you, like, a 5 cent or a $1 leeway, and you have to buy it at that price or else don't buy it." Well, it's the same thing if you go to sell it. These people have bought money or bought stock, I should say, in like Microsoft or Nvidia or any of these big tech companies, and they said, okay, as soon as the stock price hits this amount, that I know that I'm going to be recouping all of what I've put into it plus double my money, or whatever their stock market person says, and
Sounds like
they do an
Maury. Sounds like
automatic.
Maury at the slot machines in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, they do an automatic sell at that price. And so who's to say that this wasn't happening because you had some of the big movers and shakers that basically all use the same brokerages, they all use the same firms that had set it at a 50% increase or whatever when they're going to pull some profit. And so, the market movement isn't necessarily because of something that happened in the AI space. It's
It's
something that
because
happened in the financial space.
because the stock price changed. So let's talk about the bubble thing. I got a pretty good
Okay.
rant about the whole bubble thing. Um, Somebody said recently that it's hard to tell the difference between a bull market. How do you tell the difference between a bull market and a bubble? And you notice there about this recent study I put in there about JP Morgan compared the price to earnings ratio of the large dot com, because everybody compares it to that.
Mhm.
The dot com
Mhm.
bubble to the large AI companies, and found the P&E of the AI companies is about half of what the dot coms were. So is it a bubble or is it a
But
bull market?
a lower
Lower is
PE
better.
tends to be better.
That's
Yes.
correct.
So a P&E is better if it's lower. So yeah.
Correct, correct, because it means your price of your stock divided by your earnings. As that number gets lower, it means your earnings are getting higher. So when you divide the price by the stock, that means your earnings are better. So you're not overpriced. Typically, the number that they used to tell us they liked was 21 to 22. Some of these companies were at 34, 35. The dot com ones were at 80. But you know what? Amazon's P&E was so bad for years and years and years, and they didn't call that a bubble. It was just Amazon. Of course, they got hit during the dot com bubble burst too. But what
Mhm.
happens when something like when a bubble bursts? Well, what
Well,
happened what happened on the dot? Go ahead.
little companies go away. I mean, the ones
Some.
that some of them do, some of them withstand. I mean, some of them are still around. I mean, some of the companies that were around during the dot com, even though their stock never got back up to what it might have been during that time, they're still here and they're still, important companies that we have in the US or in
I
the
found
world, I should say.
and I found a quote that somebody said every time a star explodes, it seeds the next star to be born. What
Mhm.
happens when the I went back and looked back in history at bubbles. There's a railroad bubble in England in 1847, and they built literally thousands of hundreds or even thousands of miles of tracks. Well, in 1847, the bubble burst and it crashed. Well, a bunch of little people all lost their money, I'm sure, and the rich people probably made more money. But what happened? That became the foundation of all the trains that they used
The
into
Industrial Revolution, basically.
the Victorian age. All of that
Mhm.
came from that bubble. So, what about the dot com? Well, what about Bitcoins? The Bitcoin crypto mania that was fairly recently, and now everybody said that bubble burst. What happened
Okay,
to all
so
these?
hang on. Let's think about that. So the railroad built the railways, and then a bunch of the railroads went under, but it still had the infrastructure there for the trains, which caused or helped with the Industrial Revolution.
Got to
Same
move
thing
all that
happened
material.
whenever the dot coms, that all of that infrastructure that was
Hmm.
created by all of those companies is still there,
Well,
right?
that's what the modern internet is built on. The
Right.
internet that we
And then
have
you just
today,
mentioned
right? Go ahead.
you just mentioned the Bitcoin, the cryptomania, and all of that.
Yep.
Well, you have these huge server farms and these huge amounts of like GPU power that
Hmm.
since that has diminished or there's a
Well,
lot
some of the
less than what it used to be,
the crypto companies went under, or
and now they're using their space. So the infrastructure is there for AI.
well, what's hypocritical about that to me is that some of these same investment firms that were building up and talking about the AI being all this, they're the ones that they ended up with those GPUs, and they're offering access to those GPUs to incentivize the AI firms to allow them to be their investment firm. So they screamed about crypto. They got built up. Crypto crashed. They made a ton of money. They ended up also with a lot of the infrastructure that from these companies that became defunct. And now they're
Hmm.
offering that infrastructure to the AI guys, but also screaming about the fact that it's a bubble and all that other stuff. So at the end of the day, when a bubble bursts, the only one that really gets screwed,
Messed around. Yeah,
yeah, it's always
little
the little
guy,
guy. Like
the
us,
small investor.
whenever you buy your stock and suddenly
It's the
the
small investor. Yeah,
almost always
yeah.
is. I think that there are AI companies. Of course, you just said don't listen to us when it comes to investing. So, and I agree with you. But there are a lot of, I think, solid AI companies. What are they? People ask us this. Remember in the trainings we've done where people went, "Hey, what would you invest in?" And I said, I work at a school. If I
Hmm.
was a fantastic investor, I would own my own island and be retired, or
Right.
maybe a mountaintop. I don't really like islands that
But
much.
NVIDIA's not going to go away. Microsoft's not going to go away. Apple's
But
not going to go away.
Cisco is one of those companies that was a high flyer that went
Hmm.
down and they've never recovered. So you could argue that Nvidia, they are a solid company, but they maybe went too high and maybe they're not going to get back that high again. I think because they split, the odds are the value of the stock you bought is going to go up eventually. It may take a while,
Eventually,
but I think it will go back up. The companies that I think are not only not going to go away, but I think they've got a solid business model. One of them is Apple. When it comes to AI stuff, unless you absolutely hate AI to the point you're willing to stop using your iPhone, Apple's about to have a very solid AI rollout
Apple Intelligence. Yep.
that's basically what I think what a lot of us were looking for when we started all this AI stuff was a super Siri.
Yes.
And I think at the end of the day, Apple's about to give us that. And there's a lot of things that Apple can do with that because they own so much of the infrastructure already. The phones and the Macs and all you carry around a computer in your pocket thing. That's Apple. They got the cloud services so they can push things in the cloud. I think the other company that I think is also solid is Adobe. I
Because of the
think
art.
I, Adobe owns. I mean, you've been a photographer and a videographer, and you've done all the wedding photography and all that stuff. You still do photography stuff. You taught classes where you
Hmm.
used Adobe products. Do
Hmm.
you see there any downside to Adobe? They're training their AI models themselves. They're not getting their AIs from somebody else, and they're training it on the data that they already own, so that you really can't sue them for using the data. I mean, can you really argue with the ability to use Photoshop with AI enhancements?
No,
I
not at
mean,
all.
you haven't had time to play with it, but I bet if you did, I could see you getting obsessed with using something like that and fiddling with it. You love to fiddle with stuff like that.
Don't have time to
So
get obsessed with something right now.
I
Maybe
know,
that'll
but
happen in September.
maybe. But I think that at the end of the day, when all this hype dies down, and it is going to die down, one of the companies we didn't really talk about much was Intel, which we also own stock in. but I think Intel's got a
God, it
solid.
sounds like we own all this stock. We talk about this and it's
We own
like,
like
"Woo,
we
woo,
own like 4
Maury and
shares.
Jim, man, they're running the market.
Oh,
Woohoo."
yeah. Maury and
Maury
Jim
and
have 4
Jim,
shares.
yeah, 4 shares of each.
I think when the hype dies down, I don't see the technology that's behind it. I still believe AI is not only a valid technology, and you and I cover this in our presentation. Not only is it valid, but if you so choose to think it's not going to be something that's can potentially change the world, then all you're doing is handing over the keys to the kingdom to those same people that got all those GPUs because they profited from all the crypto stuff and then profited when it died out. The
I
rich people.
actually sent I actually sent you a text message just a little bit ago because
Uh-huh.
it was something that I heard. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I think I sent it to
Yeah,
AI
I
Ed
remember that.
Pro.
I remember that.
So one of the things we talk about is only the privileged, and I am on a doing a book talk with like 8 more people, live book talk
Hmm.
on co-intelligence, which was written by Ethan Mollick. And I'm almost
And
finished
when
with
are
the
you
book or
doing this
halfway
book?
done.
When are you doing
It's
this book talk?
Thursday?
Ooh, you better
No,
get that. You better
Tuesday.
get that book.
It's Tuesday.
You better
I'm
get that
almost
book
done.
finished.
And it's a
Good.
really interesting book, but one of the things that he does say in there is that it's the culmination of power in the hands of the few, which is really a better way of saying the privileged. It's the
I don't know if I'd say
culmination
it's
of
better.
power.
I like my way too. The rich
Yeah, but
folks,
then again, when we start
the
talking about
privileged.
having stock, people think that
We
we're privileged,
oh yeah,
and we're
we work.
not. So,
All we have to do is say we work in education, and people go, "Oh, okay, never mind,
oh,
never mind."
oh, yeah. Somebody
If
must
I
have
thought
gave you that stock
if I thought you had
because you sure
money,
didn't.
if I thought you had money, you'd be working elsewhere, right? Um,
Yeah. So no, it's Tuesday, and if you guys, whoever's listening in, I think we're going to start about 6 o'clock in the evening. You do have to register. You can find it on LinkedIn. I have reposted it, but the person who is kind of like hosting it or moderating it is Rachel Kent, spelled the regular way because Rachel, we spell our daughters different, Ray, but hers is just Rachel Kent, and it's going to have people on it like. Oh, just code.org, and we're having some people who do governance and education, some person who's with designing schools, a lady who works with teaching with machines. But anyway, some of the things that they're talking about in our breakout sessions, and I wanted to kind of ask you this, we only have about 5 or 6 minutes left,
Go for it.
is that um, one of the first questions we're going to talk about is 3 sleepless nights. So basically, the whole premise of the first of the book is about how the guy had some sleepless nights, right? Whenever first
Hmm.
AI first came out, he had a hard time sleeping. And it was like, how did you spend your 3 sleepless nights with AI? And the only thing I thought about that I could really answer is that I slept just fine until my husband woke me up. About 4 o'clock, I'd hear him moving around, sometimes 3:30, and I'd
Hmm.
hear this voice in the bathroom talking to my husband, and come to find out it was actually an AI that was talking to my husband. So that's how my 3 sleepless nights came from my AI obsessed husband.
Well, your
No,
AI obsessed
seriously.
husband, sleepless nights came from how I am when there's something I don't understand. And there's lots of things in the world I don't
Yes.
understand. But with technology, I tend to do pretty well, I like to think. And this was something that I had been waiting on for a long time. So my sleepless nights were creating Agnes. I mean, that's what I
Right.
first started doing because I was working on a project for the school anyway. And it was, how do I create a chatbot that ingested materials for onboarding new teachers? So I spent mine doing Agnes. What else you got?
Well, it wasn't just that for those sleepless nights. I think it was like drinking from a fire hydrant. Right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like a fire hydrant that's been opened up on the street that the kids are playing in, and you're sitting there trying to just get all the water out of it, and it just,
You know,
you were going a little crazy. And the difference in this versus everything else is that used to when something new would come out, you would spend a week, maybe 10 days at the most, and then you move on to the next thing. You have literally been drinking from the fire hydrant or the fire hose, however you want to say it, um, for 18 months.
A little longer
I
than that
mean,
now. It's been
or
longer than
longer.
18
Yeah,
months.
I mean, it's
We're
ridiculous.
approaching. We're starting
Okay,
to
so
approach 2 years. Well, hold on. You know what my old boss used to tell me? He said, "Be careful drinking from the fire hose because if you put your face in too far, you'll blow your lips off."
yeah, well, I think that's too late now. I think that's
I,
been done.
I think maybe
So
my
one
face
of
has
the
been in that fire hose for too long.
so I think the other thing that I kind of wanted to ask you, another question that we are going to be talking about
Hmm.
is how are you using or what are your best practices? If you had to tell somebody what a best practice was for working with AI, like a
Hmm.
tip or a tool or a strategy or whatever, what is your best practice for working with AI? I know what your answer is going to be, but
Do
go ahead.
you? No, I
Yeah.
want to hear what my answer is going to be because I want to see if I agree with you.
No,
You got to
no,
go
I
first.
want
You
you to
got to go
answer.
first. Nope, you got to go first.
Don't use just one.
Oh, dang! You did
Yeah,
nail that one.
see? Yeah, it's like
Wow,
a
I
best
really, I really
practice.
thought you were going to miss that one.
No, your
Wow,
best practice is that you use
absolutely.
multiple AIs for multiple things, sometimes for the same thing.
Almost
And then you
always for the
like
same thing nowadays. I
always for
com-
the same,
I compare
yeah.
their answers. It's like getting answers from multiple sources and kind of comparing them. I do that quite a bit now, actually. I didn't used to do that, but now I do it almost every time I use an AI. I'll take the output of one and
Mhm,
give it to the other and ask, and that's become actually a technique that some of the tools actually use where they take a large language model and they get it to they talk with it to build a question, which they then feed to another model, and then they break up the answers, and then they get feedback from another model on the answer from the first model. So they create a pipeline of models. And I really do think that that is the future. And the reason they're doing this is may not be what you think. It's not just about getting the better answers, it's about getting the answer cheaper. Because what they've discovered is if you put multiple models in a pipeline and you feed into the pipeline whatever you're trying to do, you can use low cost or even, well, not low cost is because you're running them local, but smaller models chained together in many cases will answer a question just as well as the big model does.
mhm,
And it's one of those things like I think where they're going with this is fine tuning. They're going to fine tune a model that does really well at math, and it's going to be part of your pipeline when you need to do math. That kind of thing.
right,
So you did nail that one.
absolutely.
I'm actually kind of disappointed. I really thought I was going to get you on that one, but
Nope,
apparently you
I
know me
know you
better than
way
I
too
thought you
well.
did. You really
I
do.
know you I know you way too well.
You do.
So, yeah, looking forward to the book chat. I finally went ahead and got it on audio, and it's the author is actually the one that's reading the book out loud. And so for the whole drive to Houston today, Rachel helped me actually. I mean, it's actually I'm very impressed. First of all, I'm impressed with myself because I've been listening to my husband for so long. I'm the educator, you're the engineer. I get to hear all
It's
the
true.
technical stuff. I'm impressed with myself because so far I have not learned anything that I did not already know, which is good. But I'm also just it
Perspective.
flows really well. The
You're also
book
getting a different
flows really
perspective.
well.
You're also getting a different
True.
perspective because you hear my perspective
Very
all the
true.
time. It's nice to hear
Yeah.
somebody else's because we incorporate both of our perspectives into every training we do because
Right.
both have a unique way of looking at what we do. So it is
Right.
good that you're getting it from other
It's good to
sources
know that
because
you're not crazy and that other people think the same way you think.
or we're all
So
crazy together.
anyway,
What does it
we
used to say?
are
Hold
running.
on, hold on, hold on. What did you used to say? Something about I'm crazy, but I'm on in my own little world, but everyone that likes me
I live
here.
in my own world, but it's okay because everybody knows me here.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So
Crazy.
anyway, we are almost out of time. Actually, we
Okay,
pretty much are out of time. So
time for
I
dinner.
am going to have to say, yes, Rachel and I are about to go eat dinner. And next week on the podcast, I really want to talk about AI and cheating because on all the stuff we've been doing, we've been getting lots and lots of questions about cheating. So I'd like to address that at our next podcast. So
Okay.
until then, my name is Maurie. I am not here with my husband Jim, but we are still talking. And we are AI in Action. We talk every single Sunday. Thank you guys for listening in.
Bye.